Our agenda today is to address two issues. Number one is building upon last year. What did Chazal do? How did they develop the theme of the third paragraph of Shema, turning it into a tefillah? That's the first issue. And part B of that issue is, why is it so crucial that there's a concept called smichas gula l'tefillah? That should be the immediate juxtaposition. That theme should be the immediate juxtaposition to the Amidah, to the actual dialogue that we have with the Ribbono Shel Olam, with the Almighty. So let's start. We said that the third paragraph of Shema was the fact that God is a historical God. He's a providential God. We talked about this and developed it. That He didn't just create the universe. He's not Plato's watchmaker. He's not the computer programmer in Mercer Island that creates a piece of Microsoft software and then there's no relationship. He is a historical, interactive, providential God that hears our prayer, that reacts to us, responds to us. He is part of the very rendezvous and destiny of what? Of the historical drama of humanity. And what was the classic example? See, if you look at the Gemara at the end of the first parak of Brachos, it says that what we'll say in the third paragraph of Shema will change in the Messianic era. Not that the mitzvah is going to change, but the text will change. Why? Because now the classic example was the breakdown of the great Egyptian, the Kur HaBarzel, the iron cauldron, where no slave ever escaped. And here HaKadosh Baruch Hu took Goy Mikerev Goy. He extricated the nation, the Jewish people, from the midst of Egypt through the breakdown of its gods, of its economy, of its military. In the Geulas Mashiach, we'll talk about what? God interacting historically, providentially into the affairs of humanity through the ultimate redemption, which will be greater because it will transform not only the Jewish people, it will transform all of humanity. The destiny of all of humanity will be radically transformed through that redemption. So that will be the example. But thematically, it's one mitzvah. It's relating to Hashem as mashgiach ba'olamo, as a providential God who runs the universe. So what does the bracha do? The bracha develops this. After we say the third paragraph of Shema, we say emes v'yatzi v'nachon. There was someone who presented this to the Vilna Gaon, and the Vilna Gaon thought it was emes. That each one of those terms is referring to each line, each pasuk of the three paragraphs of Shema. That we affirm these philosophical points. So after we affirm that it's emes and it's nachon and it's kayam, it's yashar, etc., what do we say? We relate to Hashem as that interactive redeemer. He's go'aleinu, go'el abuseinu. He redeemed us. But not only our progenitors, but us. Podenu matzilenu me'olam. Eternally, throughout history, He redeems us. And there are certain times He doesn't redeem us, but He protects us. He saves us from those who want to do harm to us. Ein Elokim zulasecha. There is no other God. There is no other source of power. There is no one who runs history, who oversees the affairs of history other than the Almighty. Not only was He the support to our Ezras Avoseinu, He's a Magenu Mashil Livnehem Acharehem, but to us, their descendants, He serves what? To protect us and to save us. B'chol dor vador, in each and every generation. We focus in here not only on the exodus of Egypt, on Yetzias Mitzrayim, but on what happened at Krias Yamsuf. Why is that? Well, there are two reasons. Reason number one is that was really the crucial point of the Exodus. I don't want to say the crucial point, I'm sorry. It was the completion of the Exodus. Why? Because psychologically we were not free. Physically we were free. As long as the Egyptians could hunt us down, they had the state-of-the-art military. They had the state-of-the-art weaponry, I should say. The best military on the face of the earth. They had something called the wooden chariot. That wooden chariot, there's no way. You could way outnumber them. But as long as they had that wooden chariot, they had the military advantage. They had the technological advantage. They had the advantage of military equipment over you. And psychologically, every night we would have nightmares. That what? That our former captors, our former masters would hunt us down and bring us back. When we saw, that's why Rashi talks about the miracle of seeing the Mitzrim al Yamsuf, by the shore, al Sfas Hayam. What does it mean, al Sfas Hayam? According to the laws of physics, they had metal armor on them. They should have sunk. They should have sunk all the way to the bottom of the sea. What does it mean that their bodies washed up on the shore? We needed to see them dead. We could never think that just like we came out this side of the Yam Suf, they came out another side of the Yam Suf. We needed to see them dead so that psychologically there was closure, there was finality. They're done. They're over. They're defeated. They're not coming back. Their chariots have been destroyed, which was their state-of-the-art weapon, which was their, so to speak, technological advantage. Their great warriors wiped out, defeated by the Almighty. And by the way, the famous Chazal, we know this from the Torah, from the Shira Hayam that we say, the song that the Jewish people sang under a great degree of nevuah. What does Chazal say? Ra'a shivcha bayam, the maidservant at the sea, she perceived to a greater degree than the nevuah of Yechezkel ben Buzi, than the great Ezekiel, the great Yechezkel Hanavi. What's the idea? They perceived God there. They perceived providentially, they saw the providential hand of God. In Egypt, they were passive. But Yam Suf, yes, they were passive, but they experienced it. They experienced it not just as people observing events. They experienced it, they perceived God. Mi chamocha ba'elim adoshem, mi kamocha neder b'kodesh. Hashem yimloch la'olam voed. That's why it says, Vayaminu bar Hashem uv Moshe avdo. They had true conviction in God and in Moshe as his servant. What, they didn't in Mitzrayim? No, but they perceived it intellectually. They attained that level of intellectual perfection that we call nevuah, that they perceived it, and they articulated that. So there's a second reason we say it. Number one is focusing on Krias Yamsuf, because that is ultimately the fait accompli. That is the ultimate, that's the pinnacle of the experience of the events of Egypt, of God as a providential historical God. That's reason number one. But reason number two, and Rav Aaron Kahn's Shlita says this, that what? That the experience of perceiving God, of interacting, of going face to face and perceiving the knowledge of God, having that hashras hashchina, being lifnei Hashem, what they experienced at Yam Suf, that's something, so to speak, that we talk about because we're about to experience God, to go lifnei Hashem, to perceive God, to relate to God face to face. Not just to be passive observers, but to go into an intimate rendezvous we're about to engage in. And this is the next point. What's the idea of smichas gula l'tefillah, the crucial juxtaposition that you talk about Hashem as a goel in no interruption? That is the immediate predecessor to the dialogue that we call the Amidah. Very simply, you have to know and you have to believe, and it has to be an absolute, an acute conviction that God interacts with humanity, that He responds to humanity, that He encounters humanity throughout the period of history, b'chol dor vador. If you don't believe that, then what efficacy is there to prayer? Then prayer is not real, it's not serious. So we talk about the greatest, most concrete example, third paragraph of Shema, developed and turned into a tefillah in the last bracha of the Shema, the bracha of Gal Yisrael, and what? And then immediately after experiencing that, God is a historical, providential Almighty, is a providential Ribbono Shel Olam. What do we do? And we talk about how they perceived God, how they related to God. Then we immediately relate to God. After we say Mi Chamocha and we say Hashem Yimloch L'Olam Voed, we immediately do what? We encounter God. We go face to face with God. That's the idea of smichas gula l'tefillah. And that, by the way, is why not have all three brachos first and then the three paragraphs of Shema? Why a sandwich? Why two brachos before and then one bracha afterwards? No, because the theme of Ga'al Yisrael has to be the immediate predecessor, prelude to the tefillah, to the Amidah. That's the first half of today's discussion. The second half is Ma'ariv is different. It's exactly the same conceptually, but it's different practically. What's the difference between the Birkos Krias Shema of Ma'ariv as opposed to the Birkos Krias Shema that we say at Shachris? So first and foremost, it's shorter. And that's a function of that Tefillah Balayla is shorter. Right? Tefillah Balayla is a rishus. Shema is an obligation at night. But the tefillah component, and that's what the Birkos Krias Shema are. The Birkos Krias Shema is tefillah, being set up as a prelude to the Amidah. It's shorter. We talk about the same themes. What does it mean? Asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim pachachmo paseach she'arim uvisvuna meshane itim umachalifes hazmanim umsaderes hakochavim b'mishraseim barakir kirtzon. What are you talking about? Borei yom v'layla, gola or choshek mipnei choshek, v'choshek mipnei or. There's no dichotomy. There's no contradiction between the events of night, the events of day, between the experiences that we experience in the cosmos in the nighttime, the experiences that we experience during the daytime, during the period of sunlight. It's all one synthesis, as we spoke about, right? Tamid yimloch aleinu l'olam v'ed. God didn't just create the universe, but He continuously sustains the universe and runs the universe. All of this. Hama'ariv aravim. So Yotzer HaMe'oros is talking about during the morning, specifically alluding to the sun. At night, when it's a time of darkness, it's the God who brought about the transformation. There's no dichotomy, like others thought. It's one synthesis. Second paragraph. The Gemara said there were two options. You could say Ava Rabba of Ava Solam. So we do one in the morning, one in the evening. The reason the evening one is shorter is because Tefillah B'Layla is a shorter Tefillah. But it's the same idea. This is what we speak about. We have an obligation to learn them, to understand them. This is our lifeblood. This is our purpose in life. This is what gives us, life itself is given meaning. These are what we contemplate day and night. Please, God, never take away from us this ultimate act of love that you gave us, a system. Baruch atah Hashem ohev amo Yisrael. What was the act of love? That He gave us this unique, distinct system. Okay. And then what happens? Here's where it really changes at night. Is the third bracha. Because the third bracha is really a third and fourth bracha. And you don't say, v'yatzi v'nachon v'kayam. You don't have that optimism, this confidence. It's emes v'amuna. It's a time of faith. We talk about, I'm going to develop this. We'll go into the text in a few minutes. Let's talk about it outside first, then we'll read the text inside. Morning is a time of optimism. Morning is always associated with redemption, with geula. It's a time of the energy of the sun, rejuvenation from a night's sleep. Night is a time of what? It's a time of trepidation. It's a time of insecurity. It's a time of fear. It's a time of darkness. I mean, it manifests itself many ways. At night, we feel our pains to a much greater degree. You don't have that energy of the sun. At night, psychologically, if you're hurting emotionally, you're hurting psychologically, you feel it to a much greater degree at night. Right? During the day, you're busy, you suppress it. At night, it comes out. People cry more at night. Kumi roni balayla. Shivchi kamayim libech. It's a time of crying. It's a time of sadness. Night is always associated with what? Galus, with the exile. It's always associated with what? The Jew downtrodden, the Jew afflicted, the Jew oppressed, the Jew not controlling the Jew's own destiny. Geula, on the other hand, is always associated with redemption. The Jew on top. It's not Yaakov, it's Yisrael. That's the day. The day is the dawn. It's a time again of redemption. It's a time of the Messianic era. So at night, we relate to God as a Goel, as a Redeemer, but it's a different kind of redemption. It's not the redemption of He's defeated our enemies and extricated us from difficult times. You know what night is? We say, help me make it through the night. Help me survive through the night. It's a different kind of redemption. It's not the ultimate victory. It's surviving. And where you see this is this special bracha that's added, Hashkivenu. Hashem, Hoshienu leman shemecha, save us, basic salvation. Hagein ba'adenu v'haser me'aleinu, please remove from us Oyev, the enemy, Dever, the pestilence, Cherev, the sword, Rav, famine, Yagon, fatigue and pain. V'haser satan milfaninu. From before us and from behind, in front of us and behind us, they're trying to get us. Uvitzel kinafecha. Protect us in your shade. What are we asking for? We're asking to survive, to make it through the millennia of diaspora, to make it through the long millennia. Because you know why? If the Jewish people don't survive, whether it's Chmielnicki, whether it was the Nazis, whether it is Ferdinand and Isabella and the Inquisition, whether it is the experiences that we had under Rome, post-Bar Kokhba, whether it was the Hadrianic decrees post-Bar Kokhba, whether it is Islamic terrorism today, the Hamas, the Hezbollah, Iran. If we don't survive that, forget about Mashiach, forget about the ultimate redemption. If there's no Jewish people to redeem, there's no ultimate redemption. We're relating to God as a historical providential God, but not as the Redeemer who's going to destroy and wipe out the enemies and bring us to a stage of enlightenment. We're referring to the Almighty who's going to enable us to survive. We will still be under their oppression. There will still be foe. There will still be challenges, but just to survive impossible odds. It's a different kind of geula. And it relates to a different state of affairs and a different stage in Jewish history. So it's the same theme, but it relating to a different manifestation of that theme. What's the theme? God is a providential God. God is someone who holds our hand throughout the long vicissitudes of history. But it's the God who enables us to survive the Galus, who enables us to survive and to make it to ultimately that final stage of Geulas Mashiach. And it's a different theme, because night psychologically is a different modality. Since it's a different modality, you relate to God psychologically different at night than you would during the day. And that manifests itself through the nature of the tefillos, through the nature of the brachos that Chazal developed. That's crucial. There's less tefillah, but there's a different kind of tefillah, relating to the same themes, but from a different perspective, a different psychological modality, and relating to a different manifestation of God as a providential God, as a historical God, as a God who is a Goel. And that's why we invoke Yaakov here. It's not Sur Yisrael. It's Baruch Ata Hashem, Kifada Hashem es Yaakov, Ugolod miyad chazak mimenu. Who saves him, who redeems him from foes that were much stronger and much greater than him. It's a different idea. And that's the Hashkivenu. To remove Haser, the Satan that is milfanenu before us, umeacharenu behind us. Ushmor, it's to protect us. Not just to redeem us, but to protect us till we get to that point. L'chaim, just for basic, that we should live, we should survive. Ul shalom, that we should have some basic peace. This is that theme. That's the role of the Birkos Krias Shema at night, which takes upon itself a little different manifestation than the Birkos Krias Shema of the morning. So we dealt with two things: the role of Ga'al Yisrael, what Chazal were doing, why there's a focus on Kriyas Yamsuf, what's the principle of the absolute juxtaposition between the Geula, Ga'al Yisrael, and the Amidah, and then the different motif, the unique, distinct motif at night, which, by the way, is why we have you could add the Yud Ches Psukim, Baruch Hashem L'Olam Amein V'Amein, those who follow the institution of the Gaonim, of those Yud Ches Psukim. That can serve, it is an interposition, it's interposed between the theme of Ga'al Yisrael and the Amidah. There's a Chatzi Kaddish there, those who say V'Shamru V'nei Yisrael Shabbos. You have different interpositions that would never be tolerated, never be allowed in Shacharis, because the role of God is his providential, historical God. It's not that ultimate Geula. Since it's not that ultimate Geula, it's a different manifestation at night. Therefore what? You don't have that exact juxtaposition. That's why if you come to shul late for Ma'ariv, we say Tefillah B'tzibor. Davening is part and parcel of the community, being under the providence of the community. That takes precedence. You do that first, then you go back and say the Birkos Krias Shema and the Shema. Not so in the morning. In the morning, you have to say there's a Seder, there's a system. to how you daven. And if it means you miss Tefillah B'tzibor, so you miss it because you have to say things according to the order. How come the order is not so crucial, it's not so demanding at night? Because the nature of the Gaal Yisrael, the nature of Hashem is a mashgiach ba'olamo. The theme of relating to God as a mashgiach ba'olamo is a different theme, is a different focus at night. And therefore, halachically, it allows for those interpositions. Thank you.